In this week's video, I'm taking you somewhere really quite special, to one of the most northerly islands in Scotland, the island of Sanday, part of the beautiful Orkney archipelago. Hello and welcome to Through Lucy's Lens weekly videos where I go somewhere interesting and hopefully you will find them interesting too. I'm a social historian interested in the history of people, not politics. And along with history, I enjoy travelling to places to find that history for you.
It's wild, it's windy, and it's wonderful. Made it to Orkney.
Sanday is one of the largest islands of the Orkney archipelago. The third largest, in fact, lying around 136 miles north of the Scottish mainland. You can reach Sanday by either a short flight from Kirkwall on Orkney or by ferry across the ever-changeable waters of the North Sea. As you approach, what strikes you immediately is how open, how wide the landscape feels here. Low, rolling ground with soft beaches and long ribbons of white sand that seem to stretch forever. In fact, that's where the island's name comes from. Sanday in Old Norse, meaning the sandy island. The Vikings, of course, knew what they were talking about. I want to focus today not on the distant past but on the living heritage here. The life of ordinary islanders, past and present, and how they've shaped Sanday into what it is today. So first of all, come with me to the Sanday Heritage Centre. It's a little gem that tells the story of the island through the things people left behind. The Heritage Centre sits quietly near Lady Village in what was once a temperance hall. Inside, it's full of life, memories, and a deep sense of belonging. I spent many quiet and incredibly happy hours here during my visit researching for a very special upcoming video, so please be sure to subscribe if you aren't already, not to miss that. So here at the Heritage Museum, just outside is a croft house. And this is a wonderful insight into how most people on Sanday lived for generations. As you can imagine, I was beyond excited to have the opportunity to have a look around a house. This type of dwelling is often called a ben and butt house. The term comes from Scots dialect. The ben was the main living space and the butt or the butt end was the other room, often used for cooking or sleeping, depending on the family arrangements. The croft at Sanday is set as it would have been approximately 100 years ago, although life would have looked similar here right up until the 1960s when this house was last occupied. Imagine a peat fire burning low in this hearth, the smoke curling upwards towards the roof, the smell of the sea mixed with the earthy scent of peat. The walls were rough but warm, and once the fire was lit, the furniture, which was handmade, sturdy and practical, and often passed down through generations, would have kept you warm and comfortable. You can see several Orkney chairs. Orkney chairs were originally designed to be simple, functional pieces of furniture. They would have been created from materials gathered from the natural environment on the islands. There's no set design of an Orkney chair. Every maker had their own style, their own size and their own preference. These chairs were made for the person. Usually the chairs were low to the ground so the occupant could avoid the smoke from the peat fires, which were traditionally in the middle of the room in old croft houses. The straw back on the chair would keep the warmth from the fire in and the drafts from the sometimes wild Orkney weather out. The addition of a hood to some chairs gave additional shelter, and a drawer was sometimes added to store personal belongings, but only if enough driftwood could be scavenged from the shore. Life in a croft like this was far from easy. A crofting family on Sanday would live by a mixture of farming, fishing and craft work. They worked small plots of land, crofts, which were not owned outright but rented from a landlord. The soil was often thin and salty, so people had to be inventive. They grew oats, barley and potatoes and kept a few cattle, hens and sheep. They would also make full use of the shoreline and the sea, gathering kelp for fertiliser, driftwood for fuel. A day in the life of a crofting family might start before dawn. The man of the house would check the animals, feeding, milking, perhaps mending a fence or thatching a roof after a storm. The woman would light the fire, prepare the morning meal, which would usually be porridge or bannocks, and see to the children. Everybody worked here, even the young ones, helping with the peats, the weaving or collecting eggs. Winter on Orkney can be fierce. Storms would cut the island off for days and still do, but islanders made do, mending, reusing, repurposing everything they could. Old clothes would be turned into quilts or curtains and broken tools repaired. Driftwood shaped into handles or pegs. Nothing was wasted here. There are no bedrooms in the modern sense here. Instead, there's a box bed. In each of the living spaces in many croft houses, there would be a box bed, built into the wall or the corners of the room. Children might sleep in one bed together, or in a second box bed there might be room for the parents. Occasionally, even guests would squeeze in, and it wasn't uncommon for a whole family to sleep in one bed, grandparents included. Inside there'd be a straw or heather mattress covered with a thick woolen blanket and maybe a hot stone tucked under the covers on a cold night. The doors or curtains could be drawn to shut out everybody else and keep in the warmth. It also gave you a bit of privacy in a house where everyone lived, cooked and slept in the same few square feet. Box beds were of course practical. The thick wooden panels kept out the drafts, and sometimes walls were also lined with extra blankets or newspaper. The bed could be neatly closed away behind the doors. Some even had drawers underneath or shelves above, so that every inch of space was used. Inside the bed was dark, warm and cosy, and some accounts say almost too cosy, as the air could get quite stuffy overnight. But for people living in a harsh climate, that sense of being enclosed and sheltered would have been a comfort. In this house, the family would have made their own entertainment. Through gatherings or stories told by the fire, the sound of a fiddle or an accordion, and in this croft there's an organ to provide music and entertainment. Time could also be spent spinning wool, taking part in crafts, and of course for the females in the house, the never-ending task of keeping the space clean and free from the dust and grime of rural life. The Croft House at the Heritage Centre gives you a real sense of life here, and people visit from all over the world when they're researching their ancestors to get an impression of what living here would have been like. You can picture the children sitting around the hearth, mother spinning wool, or father mending a net or sharpening a scythe. This croft has sat here silently for generations. And when the Sandy War Memorial was unveiled on the 17th of June 1921 by a Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Dick, who both lost sons in the war, the Croft House sits silently spectating in the background. 48 Sanday men are listed on the memorial who lost their lives during World War I. Sandy's crafting tradition continues today, though in new forms. Smaller scale farming, renewable energy projects, and a growing awareness that the old ways of living lightly on the land might be the best guide for the future. Next door to the Heritage Centre is the Sandy Eco Reuse Shop. Inside it is a treasure trove, shelves filled with tools, books, clothing, crockery, bits and pieces, everything from vintage lamps to bicycle parts. It is amazing. And for me, it tells you something vital about the island life today and how it's been for centuries. On a small island like Sandy, everything has value. Transporting goods on and off the island costs money and energy. So people learn and still today reuse and repair rather than replace. Being on Sandy for me was a reminder of how history and modern life can fit together. And while I was on the island, I had the absolute pleasure of meeting a new friend who showed me their beautiful home. This stone house was once a small cottage for kelp collectors on the island. These were the poorest people here who worked for the laird. The cottage has been renovated into a modern day croft, along with a modern box bed, kitchen and running water. No TV though, as some things are best left on the mainland. Isn't it stunning? As I stood on the harbour on the day I had to leave Sanday, I felt a deep affection for the island that so many visitors here describe. Sanday has a way of getting under your skin. It's not just beautiful and breathtaking, it has a spirit of resilience, creativity and warmth that's as strong here today as I imagine it would have been 100 years ago. I felt at home here, so thank you, Sanday. So if ever you find yourself in Orkney, take the time to cross to Sanday. Walk its long beaches, visit the Heritage Centre, talk to the locals, pop into the shops. You'll see what I mean. It's a place that reminds you how much richness there is in simple living and how history, when we listen to it, still has so much to teach us. Thank you, as always, for joining me on this journey today. There's a lot more to come from this magical island, and in my next video I'll show you how you can stay in a living museum here and experience life on a Victorian farm with some hidden modern comforts. You really don't want to miss it, so be sure to subscribe. To all of you, thank you for allowing me to live my dream. When I started this channel, I didn't think anyone would watch it, and yet here you are, cheerleading me and making this 40-something-year-old woman who felt as if I had nothing left to give to the world very, very happy. Until next time, goodbye, and I'll see you here.